Welcome to Mavens of Data. This week we're speaking with Sia Zahedi, former CDO of MoneyGram. Sia shared all about the role of a CDO and the types of data problems you're thinking about in financial remittance. I hope you enjoy this episode. Sia, thank you so much for joining. For people who maybe do not know you, can you give us a little rundown of your background?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for having me. Really excited to be here with you today. I took a little bit of an untraditional path to data myself, and I started my career in finance. My role in finance has been to partner very closely with the business to help them drive financial performance. And to do that throughout my career, I had to get deeply involved and understand all the underlying factors that drive those results. And that deep curiosity and the desire to figure out why is what ultimately led me to data. I had the opportunity in 2019 where I was approached and asked to take the same thinking and mindset that I had always employed in my finance background to data. That resulted in me working very closely with the business, understanding the outcomes that they were trying to deliver, and then back into all of the data needs organizationally that it took to get there. All of that work then led to a data strategy, a data migration working with my tech partners, and then ultimately the setup of an analytics function, which then launched my career in data. And I haven't looked back ever since. It's been a great opportunity and I've loved it.
Yeah, awesome. No, and I think that that's an important point too, because like you were in finance and you weren't in a data specific role, but in a lot of ways and a lot of times we're like really doing similar work. We just don't have the same title and there are a lot of transferable things. And so when you got to senior leadership, like what does that type of role look like? And how were things different from when you were, working with data and finance?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, when you are kind of mid-level or where you're first starting out in your career, a lot of what you're doing is execution work. So you're going in and trying to figure out, you're given a problem and sometimes even a solution, and then you have to go in and figure out how to do those things. As you start to elevate in your role, things really start to change in that you really have to start thinking about how to solve that problem and provide people the right tools and guidance to be able to do that. So you turn more from, you leave an execution type role and become more of someone who can guide and lead teams to be able to be successful in the things that they're accomplishing.
Right, because even when you're in a lower level, you said sometimes, you'll get the solution and the solution isn't necessarily like the algorithm that's going to get you. It's like that high level, where do we need to get that's going to fix this problem, even if it's not, the tech underneath.
Exactly.
And what are some of what were some of your favorite or most interesting problems that you got to try and come up with a solution for?
The customer problem is always a big one to solve. I think organizations don't realize how much customer data that they have and how much kind of hangs off of that customer data. And so when you step back from just the basic measurements of customer and you get into all of the different things that hang off of it, the attributes, the interactions, the friction points, all of those things by themselves unlock a tremendous amount of value. And so, that's typically the types of problems that we're solving and that became really most interesting in the industry.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so when, over time, right, things have had to change, you update your data stack to allow you to like work with all of this data that you're looking to solve problems with. How do you think about like when you need to update certain tools or if there's ways that you can improve your data stack?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that lead to a decision for companies to update their data stack. I mean, typically it's really for the business to want to drive better and faster decisions and to do it at the appropriate level of cost. What people don't realize is that companies, they have their data scattered across, a lot of companies still have their data scattered across dozens of applications, sometimes in these physical server farms. And so what that does is it causes a level of fragmentation to occur. That fragmentation then leads to inconsistent, slow, unreliable data for organizations. And so what that typically does is that realization leads companies to want to update their data stack. The benefits of that obviously are that you get all of your data in a central repository. You're able to link it. You're able to drive tremendous amount of insights from it. The drawback of all of it is it takes a tremendous amount of time and resources to do it. Data migrations at an enterprise level typically take years to complete. They take a tremendous amount of investment. And once that's done, it gives you a really good framework to be able to operate off of. And I think the other thing to really think about is there's a huge level of governance required throughout that process too, and a really close relationship between the CDO function and the CTO function within the organization to be able to make that happen.
Right. And I think too, we also have the problem now with the tools are coming out so quickly. And like you said, like it does take a long time to evaluate, hey, should we move to, should we adopt a graph database so that we can better get at fraud? But at the same time, like all of those evaluations take time. What is going to be the actual benefit of doing it? And is that real? And is that someplace we want to invest in? Or is that like a one-off project? And trying to figure out like, hey, is there really value here? So what types of problems, being in finance, what were the types of problems that you were really invested in trying to solve?
So there's always there's a huge variation of problems that we're trying to solve at all times. Some of it is around being able to attract customers. Again, going back to the customer discussion we were having a minute ago. And then the others, if you think about it on the other side of the spectrum, it's around risk and compliance as well. You're dealing with a business that is really high volume. It's cross-border. It's real time, and so you're dealing with a lot of challenges. And so for us, it was, from a data perspective, always, to your point, leveling up to the problem that we're trying to solve, working closely with the business, and then coming back to the various data initiatives that it takes for us to be able to deliver the outcomes that the business is looking for.
Yeah. And so in my roles, I was often supporting like one team. It would be, hey, my focus now is marketing. My focus now is operations. But I was not often, there were times where I was a little bit higher, but, at your level, you're looking at sort of all the different areas of the business. And like you said, you've got customers, you've got risk and compliance, you have all these competing priorities. So how are you thinking about, ensuring alignment and making sure that you're working on the most high impact projects?
Yeah, I think it all goes back to valuation of the things that you're working on. Whether you realize it or not, every single initiative that you're working on has value, and you only have limited resources to be able to get things done. And so there's a couple of things needed for that. First, you need to step back and look at each of the things that are in front of you and what's going to drive the highest value for the business, or what's the highest priority for the business at the time. And then there needs to be a tremendous amount of alignment between you as the leader and your operational and business counterparts, so that they understand, they have clarity around what you're working on and when. So to answer your question, I'd say it's a lot of kind of coordination on the valuation of the objective. And then the second thing is around the coordination with the coordination with the business to be able to make sure that they're aligned with what you're working on and your priorities as well. There's a lot of management of stakeholders involved in that process.
Right. And so do you have like any tips for how people should think about prioritization or think about how to, get these stakeholders to, be aligned and fall in with what it is that you're trying to set as like a vision or roadmap?
Yeah, I'd say, communication is huge for just always being open and transparent around the objectives and the things that you're working on is extremely important with senior stakeholders. So communicate frequently, often, clearly around the things that you're working on and the things that you're not working on. And then if you are working with the business to help them understand your priorities, sometimes putting that in some type of framework is also a really great idea, because when people can visualize all of the different objectives that are in front of you, and then you can communicate to them why and where that falls in the valuation and prioritization schema, that gets you to a really good place to be able to have the right communication. And then when someone can see all of the things that you're working on, they can say, well, no, this thing is actually more important than this thing. And it drives the conversation, and it gives you the latitude to be able to not feel like you need to do everything at the same time. There's general agreement on the things that have been agreed upon.
Right. And so now, of course, there's a lot of AI initiatives that are starting to bubble up to the top in terms of prioritization. From your experience working on these types of projects and with teams who are building these, what would you say is some of the things that people underestimate in taking on these AI initiatives?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, Kristen, is that it's the model itself is the easy part. It's everything around it that is extremely difficult and challenging. And so, the key thing, if you think about AI initiatives, it's about making sure you have clean data. It's making sure that you have your pipeline set up. It's making sure that you have monitoring and everything set up. And so I think the biggest obstacle or the biggest challenge is that having all of those things set up. And then at the end of the day, it's also adoption and buy-in with the business is a great challenge as well. And how I think most organizations are able to satisfy that is that they set up, first of all, there needs to be executive alignment and involvement in the selections that are being made in terms of the project. And then secondarily, there needs to be a measurement framework set up where the business is held accountable to the outcome of that initiative as well. So yeah, tremendous amount of alignment required across your functions and everything that you're working on. And very clear go, no-go gateways where you're evaluating, making sure success criteria are being met before you go to the next phase.
Right. And even monitoring is one of those things where, again, you're going to be evaluating a ton of tools for monitor. Like we were talking about
Correct.
that tool evaluation, right? And it's like this whole new set of tools that need to be evaluated and implemented. And like you said, the modeling can often be the easy part, because a lot of times now we're building like a wrapper around an API and we're not even actually playing with the model. But, what have you seen in terms of what it takes to go from a POC that somebody can set up rather quickly to something that's actually in production?
Yeah. So kind of back to the prior question, POCs are really easy. I mean, relatively easy. So you can have a data scientist spin up a model really quickly, or you can do a very quick tech evaluation with some sample data. And you'll get these amazing findings and you'll be like, wow, this is great. I want to do this. But once an organization makes the decision to actually commit and go to production with an AI initiative, everything changes. The level of alignment that you need from your functional stakeholders, your product teams, your engineering teams, your program management teams to track everything, making sure that you have clear value-based milestones in each step of your evaluation, and being very, very disciplined around the go, no-go decisions of each gateway of your decision are very, very important to get to where you want to be. And I think there's so much underneath, as we talked about a minute ago, in terms of the pipelines, the engineering, the governance layers, everything that it takes to make these models successful. So you need all hands on deck at all times to make that happen. And I think this is why you're hearing and seeing a lot of more articles about why AI initiatives fail, is because organizations aren't taking the time to think about their organizational readiness around AI. A lot of organizations have a really great strategy, but when it actually comes to the build, they don't have the organization readiness around it to be able to actually go in and get things done. And so it's things are very, very different from prototype to production when you think about it.
No, I agree. And, even the alignment piece is so different, right? Because somebody comes and asks you for a dashboard. You can set up a dashboard and maybe it does or doesn't meet the aim. And someone can say, actually, no, you need to add this thing or that thing or whatever. But it was always previously an analyst or a data scientist, and they were grabbing data from a database and they were adding it to their dashboard. But for these AI initiatives, a lot of times you're not getting data from a database. It's knowledge articles that are on the website. It's something else. It's text data. And all of a sudden, it feels like the business needs to all communicate together in a way that's like just a lot heavier than we did previously. Is that what you've seen as well?
Completely, 100%. I think co-creation with the business is imperative when you're working through these things. You don't want to diverge from the objectives of what the business is trying to build. Because you're a tech person and you're like, hey, this is really cool, I'm going to go build it this way. Again, these milestones and value objectives that you're working through for each phase, it's really important to make sure the business is involved and accountable to the sign off. Because at the end of the day, you want to deliver a product that they're going to use and they're going to need, not one that you're going to use.
Yeah, no, I was thinking as you were talking, I sort of missed the days where I could just run off and like build something and come back.
Yes.
It's not like that anymore.
No.
And then in terms of like data governance, what sort of challenges have you seen there, particularly in finance?
Yeah, so data governance, in the worlds that I've been in, when you're dealing with data coming from all over the world, and you're dealing with data coming from partner applications and upstream systems, the biggest challenge is really that data definitions and the data harmonization behind it. And so I think data scientists know this. We have this conversation quite often. The most important step of building any model, whether it's an AI model or a predictive data science model, is the data harmonization piece of it, the EDA phase, exploratory data analysis. It's really important to go and inspect all of the inputs of data that are coming from your systems, start to align the definitions, start to harmonize that data, because that is going to be the win or break of your model. If you have really good data, you're going to have a great model. If you just rush to the model phase or the AI phase without really taking that very intentional step of solving your data challenges, you're going to end up in a situation where your model doesn't work. You're going to have to scrap it and start all over again.
And then, so just to sort of transition into maybe advice for people who would like to be a CDO someday or would like to be more at an executive level, what would you tell a senior data scientist who now maybe wants to be at that position someday?
Yeah, I actually love this question. I think my recommendation to you is start thinking like a general manager. Go and get involved in the business. Talk to your sales leaders, talk to your marketing leaders, talk to your product leaders, understand the challenges that they're trying to solve. You will always need that tech background that you have, but when you start to elevate in your role and get into a senior leadership role, it becomes all about vision and impact at that point, and influence. And so the more you are involved and deep in your business domain, and you understand the problems that people are trying to solve, and you start speaking that language, that's how you start to elevate in your role and become a senior leader.
Right. No, I feel like I learned about marketing myself through seeing other people being great at marketing themselves and doing well, and
Yes.
then being like, wait, I'm missing that. That's really important. That's a
Yes,
key. And I thought it was all tech stuff, but it's not all tech stuff. I got to do that.
absolutely.
And so what are some things that you wish data scientists understood more about the business and about finance?
Yeah, another really great question. And I think regardless of the industry, whether you are in finance, financial services, or whether you're in any other industry, the best data scientists are the ones that start with the problem and then they back into the solution. They're starting with the question of why do I need to solve this problem, or what is this problem that you're trying to solve? And they're not starting with how do I solve it? They're not starting with the model and the technique. They're starting with, okay, based on this problem you're trying to solve, here are the different ways that we can solve it that will give us the most accurate results. And even as you progress beyond the model build phase and you actually get to talking to the business stakeholders and aligning on what you're building, the most important part there is also speak the language of the business. Talk to them about, hey, I built this model to deliver this. Here's how it does it. Don't get into all of your algorithms and your modeling techniques and your P-scores and all of that. Like, really get into that. And then when people ask, how do I know this is accurate? Well, this is how you can tell. You look at this metric and it tells you this. And so for me, especially being in a leadership roles, the best data scientists that I've always worked with are the ones that spoke the language of the business and helped me understand then how their model contributed towards an outcome.
And that's tough because I feel like that's another thing that we learn on the job, or I think
For sure.
programs are getting better at teaching that skill. But I know for myself personally, it was, again, like learning through bringing a presentation and putting it in front of a group and derailing the talk for 20 minutes because I had p-values on there or coefficients, and and then having to learn, like, actually, no, I have to interpret that model myself, which is extra work, but the onus is on me, and I have to do that first, and I have to think carefully about how I'm going to word this. I can't just show up and start flying from the hip because I'm going to start talking in technical jargon that no one understands.
Completely. I've been there so many times. I totally understand.
Yeah. Awesome. So this was great. I would love to transition over to Q&A if you're ready for that.
Sure.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So this is from Arturo. He said, I am feeling overwhelmed with so much info, data lakes, lake houses, ETL, and including writing SQL queries. Do I need to know about the various platforms like Oracle, AWS, Azure, Snowflake, and so on? Do I need comprehensive knowledge on these? So basically, is it the tools or is it something else?
Yeah, I would say, depending on your role, if you are an architect, yes, you absolutely need to know these things. If you are a data scientist, not necessarily. At the end of the day, what you hear about data warehouses, data lakes, AWS, Azure, Snowflake, all of these things are are platforms. And they essentially, people will argue with me, they essentially do the same thing at the end of the day. It's just a different architecture to deliver the same results for the business. And so depending on what your enterprise has selected as their tool set, you'll likely get the same outcome, maybe get to it a little bit differently, but they all kind of work the same at the end of the day. So I think it's not bad to know it, but it's not imperative if you are in the data science space. If you're an engineer or an architect, then it's a lot more relevant to know about these different things and be able to propose various solutions back to the business.
Right, exactly. And like AWS and Azure, those are two cloud platforms. So like
Yes.
probably only need to learn one. Like go learn how to set up an
Yes.
app on Azure App Services, and now you've played a little bit with a cloud platform, right? Do you
For
need to know
sure.
both? No, you need to have like one on your resume that shows that you have that type of experience, and then it's a lot easier to learn. If you end up working someplace that has GCP, you'll be able to pick that up because you've worked with cloud platforms before. So it's important to like get a handle on it, but you don't need to know Azure, AWS, and GCP because they're all very similar.
For sure.
um,
Great question.
This is from Jerry. When implementing AI, especially in its early stages where benchmarks are not well established, how do you approach performance evaluation? And in your experience, which is more critical for success? Strong departmental collaboration or organization-wide alignment?
Yeah, I think this is actually a really great question as well. It's going back to the data science discussion we were having a moment ago. When implementing AI, one of the things to make sure that you start with is not the AI solution itself, but the purpose and the value of what you're trying to deliver. And then you back into the AI solution that will help you deliver that. And so what I'm saying there is that typically you're not starting AI first, you're starting with a problem first, and you're solving that with AI. And when you are solving a problem, I would argue that your measurement objectives, your outcome at least, is pretty clear. And if you know your outcomes, you can back into the measurement objectives that it takes to be able to deliver that outcome. And that's how you should stage your review of your performance standards for your model or your pipeline builds or your pipeline performance. All of those things come into play. And to do that, that's just talking about measurement. But the strong organizational-wide collaboration is absolutely imperative, as we talked about earlier, in being able to get there at the same time. You need everybody rowing in the same direction on an AI framework for it to actually make any traction. You can't have people focused on 5 different projects and then coming back and trying to do these types of things. And then so that interdepartmental collaboration is very important. And then when you elevate it one level, if you've got a bunch of people within the organization trying to build AI stuff, but then your executive team isn't either aware of it or they don't understand how the AI initiatives are actually aligning towards the outcome that the company is trying to get to, then no one's going to adopt it or no one's going to push for it to be completed. So to answer this question, it's a little bit of everything. That organizational alignment is so important, and it starts at the top. The top's got to know what the company needs, and then people at the bottom have got to be able to take that, align it towards the outcomes that the business is trying to deliver, and then back into the AI initiative, and then that then develops the performance standards that you need to get there, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Okay, so this question is from Mohammed. He said, I actually wanted to ask this question as somebody who is a student currently studying data analytics in first semester. Should I actually do research work, or what should I actually do in your view to get hands-on experience with data? I've done internships, but they are just tasks.
Okay, yes. So I would answer this and say, the more you can do, the better. I mean, take on as many projects as you can. Variety is extremely important in this space. I really like how a lot of students, they will go off and do their own use cases and create a platform where they share all of the things that they've done and the problems that they've solved. Some of the best sites that I've seen people put up are the ones where they're showing they're solving a specific business problem, or they have a very compelling question that people continuously ask, and they show how they've taken their knowledge and their background and they've been able to solve these solutions. And so, yes, do everything. Research, get involved in projects, do your own projects. The more you can build your experience with whatever you're doing, the better in these cases. And then when you go into an interview and you're having a discussion, it shows that assertiveness and it shows that curiosity. And I think employers always want to see that. For me, especially when I interview people, when they show me all the great work that they've done and the problems that they've solved, it's just it's a huge win.
Yep. No, and just to tag along with that, like, so business use cases are awesome, but also if you can build a project that's going to like really light you up and it's going to come through in the interview that you're excited, right? Like I built a project to detect the school bus, but if you ask me about it, I'm going to go off on a tangent, right? And like that comes through in an interview, but also it's easier than ever to get data. So there's like on Kaggle, there's the, IBM employee retention data set. So you could do something around retention. There's LTV data sets out there. There is specific, business problem data sets that are already curated that you can go and work with. And it shows you actually applied your knowledge to a business problem. And whether that's a dashboard or it is a statistical model, like, either way, it shows that you've been thinking about working with business data and applying it to problems.
Absolutely. I think you touched on a big point there, Kristen. You got to also love what you do. And that comes through and people can see that. For me, once I entered the data space, it was a complete change in everything that I did. I loved it so much, being able to have so much impact with all of the insights and the capabilities that we were developing as a team. And I think that passion definitely comes through in people and they do light up. And in an interview, that typically shows that enthusiasm always comes through very well.
Yeah. When you're like, you feel empowered to solve problems. Okay, so this question is from Bob. He said, do you feel that data analytics function is best housed under its own C-suite role, FPA, IT, or as an analyst with each department? Do you feel the data analyst reporting structure depends on size? Okay, so yeah, this is all about the organization.
Oh my gosh, I have seen this all over the place.
Yep.
I don't think organizations have quite figured it out yet, to be honest with you. I've seen it report to the business. It's typically to a chief operating officer. I've seen it report to finance, and I've seen it report to IT. I'll give you my view. Mm-hmm. My view is the closer it is to the business, the better, because the whole point of data is that you're solving business problems. And if you are hand in hand with all of the people that are working day in and day out to increase revenue and reduce cost, you're going to be thinking that way, and you're going to be helping them do that. And I've seen kind of data roles, CDO roles specifically, two different flavors actually. Some are data. If you look at data analytics, there's like a balance, right? You need people on the data side who have intrinsic knowledge of the business and can drive the business. And then on the analytics side, you've got or vice versa. Sorry, on the data side, you've got to be very tech focused in some cases. And then on the analytics side, you're very business focused. And so depending on where the organization is in their spectrum of analytics, I've seen data roles on the tech side because they're just trying to build their tech capabilities around the data. But I've also seen data roles on the business side where they have very, very strong tech partners, but they need that informed through a data strategy to be able to implement and employ all the different components around the data that they're trying to build. So the answer to your question is, it depends. And I've seen it all over the place, actually.
Yeah, like a center of excellence in the middle, but then the data people are actually embedded on different teams. The one thing that I do like to look out for, just if you're somebody who's newer to the field, I have seen where there will be an analytics team. It goes up through a VP of analytics. Maybe they don't have a CDO, but there is like an analytics reporting structure.
Yes.
And then teams may, like the marketing team may go off and say, you know what, we want our own data analyst and hire like an individual person. And I'd say that I wouldn't necessarily want to be in that place early in my career, because I wouldn't be getting the same level of mentoring and support. And often what happens is you end up doing like ad hoc requests that maybe aren't as like aligned with, when a lot of what Sia was talking about was getting alignment, making sure that you're working on like the highest value project. And a lot of that comes from, having like a bigger infrastructure around what it is you're trying to solve. So I wouldn't want to be like the lone man in a department, but agreed, it can still, like being embedded on a team, I think was one of the best places that I was, but that's how the whole org was working.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I believe that centralization of analytics functions works really well, to your point, Kristen, because there's a lot of best practices, even if you're working on different domains or specializations, there's an enormous amount of cross-pollination and learning that you can do around coding, platforms, insights, how people think. And you get to harvest that when you are in a centralized framework. And then the other thing, I'm a firm believer of separation of church and state here in the analytics space, because you don't want people grading their own homework. You want to hold them accountable and drive them to do better. And to really do that, you've got to pull analytics out and challenge the business from outside to be able to do that successfully.
Love it. One more question. This is from Richard. And he said, this could be an impossible question to answer, so feel free to laugh. From your experience, given the growth of AI, have you seen if there is more job security in data leadership versus being an expert level individual contributor?
It is a hard question to answer, but I will give you my thoughts on it. I think in today's day and age, where everybody's trying to strive towards AI and strive towards using data for insights, the individual contributor roles that are stepping into highly specialized functions like AI are doing really well right now. Especially, everybody's trying to build a chatbot. Everybody's trying to build an AI agent. And so the more you can think about where the market is going and where the trends in the industry are going, which you can follow daily, and the more you can kind of embed yourself and specialize yourself in that area, that's where the growth will come, and you'll be highly attractive. Now, what may be popular today may not be popular 3 years from now, but that's where you've got to also be very open and constantly learning and adapting yourself to the different changing landscape in the data space. So be curious, learn constantly, and I think specialize as much as possible to be able to succeed.
All right, awesome, thank you. And that is what we had. Sia, thank you so much. Yeah,
all right.
That's it.
Awesome.
If people want to find and follow you, what is the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, just hit me up on LinkedIn, and we can have a conversation, or I can help you in any way.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sia. This
My
was
pleasure.
awesome.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Kristen. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.
All right.
Bye.